So I just had one of the best episodes I've had in a while, and I always think that until I have the next one. But we are in for a supreme treat today. Tiffany Aliche, who's the Budgetnista, a friend I grew up with, a friend I went to high school with. She's got just the best story, and this story is really going to resonate you right now because we're going through a time when a lot of people are going to have a lot of forced changes that they're not prepared for. Tiffany's been there. She's gone through it. She's got the best advice for you to really get out from what you're doing, and she's America's favorite personal financial educator, and through her Living Richer movement, she's helped over 1 million women save, manage, and pay off millions of dollars. She's a former preschool teacher for 10 years with a master's degree in education, and Tiffany was instrumental in getting the Budgetnista Law A1414 passed in January of 2019, making financial education mandatory for middle school students in New Jersey. Just an incredible person, a great guest, and you're going to be really into what you see here. Hello, Tiffany. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well, Jason. How are you?
Good. So talked a little bit off track, but on this point, Tiffany and I haven't seen each other in about 25 years. Yes. However, we grew up together, and here we are getting back together in the midst of being able to chat during COVID. So this will be out in a few weeks. Hopefully things have dissolved, but right now there's still going to be a lot of lessons that have been learned, and this will be something for generations that people look back on and have to really talk. But Tiffany has this unique experience to really just come from so many different sides, from really just growth, really just finding the best in situations, growing on financial independence, and she's helped so many others. And I thought one of the best questions really to lead in here is, you've done so much with your life and to help others. For people that are out there that are really in a deep, dark spot right now or just lost, what would be some steps they could take today to get themselves on the right track?
So first I want to say that I distinctly remember the last recession because I lost everything. You know, like I was actually a school teacher for 10 years. And I thought at the time that teachers didn't lose their jobs because it was, you need a teacher, you know, but it was a nonprofit based school and they lost their funding because the corporations that were supporting us no longer had it. And so it was the summertime, 3 days before the new school year. It was a total surprise. And so all of a sudden, no school. I was 29 at the time, and I just bought a condo a couple years before. So now and then I just finished my master's a couple years before. So now I've got like this graduate degree that I have to pay for and pay off in student loans. I have this new home, and I have no income. And I remember just being like totally freaked out. I ended up pulling all of the money out of my 401k, which I do not recommend, trying to save the home, only to lose it anyway. So it was like compounding. I just can't even express how it was like, I literally have nothing. I think I had a 99 Toyota Camry that I had I didn't owe anything on. That was like the only worldly possession that I had. And I just remember being so overwhelmed because I wasn't 21, I was 29 going on 30, and 30 is like, I feel like official adulthood, and I did not feel like an adult. I ended up moving back home with my parents right before my 30th birthday and moving into my middle school bedroom thinking like, wow, and feeling like it's going to always be like this, because as a teacher, if you don't have your job in September, there might be a handful of teachers that might get pregnant or might leave, but for the most part, they have their teachers. They can't start, the school year without teachers. So, and so many teachers now are, they're not sure or they're unsure about what their position's going to be moving forward. And so I felt like I didn't know how to do much else. I'd gone to school for business, but I'd never really worked other than some internships. And I just wasn't sure, like, what do I do with my life now? Yeah. I'm 30 years old. I moved back home. I have no money. I actually have less money at 30 than I did at 16. I always worked. Like I always had like a summer job and I was a really good saver. And so at 16, I probably had maybe like $2,500 saved. I did not have $2,500 at 30. And it was a dark time and it was a scary time. But the first step for me that really helped was I had to forgive myself because I felt like my financial misfortunes were like a testament to my character. You tell yourself, like, you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, what are you doing? You're a loser. What do you know? And so I was beating myself up, and it's just not helpful. That making financial mistakes it's not a testament to your character. They're mistakes. And unless you went to school specifically for finance, very few of us had like financial upbringing, like an upbringing where we learned about finance. Even though I did, my father was a CFO and I learned about finances at home, and I still made those mistakes, and it still didn't make me a bad person. It made me a person that had made some choices. And what it also made me is a person that can make new choices. So once I kind of forgave myself and told myself I wasn't allowed to beat up on myself anymore, then I started putting one foot in front of the other. And the first things first, you always have to position yourself to be living less than what you make. It's easy to say, we all say that, living below your means, but hardly anyone does it, not Americans anyway. We all live above our means. It's critical, especially now. I don't know where we are. We don't know yet. It's looking like a recession, but it has to be 6 months of consistent economic downturn before they can officially call it a recession. So I don't know what it's going to be, but it doesn't look good. You can't have people out of work for a significant amount of time and it not affect the economy, no matter what stimulus package they put out there. Mm-hmm. So it's my estimation that even if it's not a full recession, there's going to be some sort of ramifications for what's happening now. And it's now more important than ever to live below your means, to stack up on your savings. You should be saving as if like it's a second job, to position yourself for if there's any blowback, in case you lose your job, in case your income is reduced. You want to have, at this moment in time, usually I say 3 to 6 months, and I'm telling people now, no, 6 months, because I don't know what the coming months look like ahead. If you really want to be super on the safe side, I say a year. If you're able. I have a year's worth of cash saved, just because I work for myself. So for me, I need more because I just don't know. I don't know what the future holds. So living below your means, saving like crazy, even if it means, and I'm someone who does not like debt. I own 2 properties. Both of them are mortgage free. The house I live in and an investment property that my husband and I own. We both have a car, a piece. Those are totally paid off. So I'm 100% debt free. But even I'm saying this, that if I had debt now and I didn't have at least 6 months worth of savings, I honestly would reduce my debt payment. Meaning that if you have a credit card debt and the minimum is $30 a month and you're paying $200 because you're trying to pay it down, I don't know that I put $200 toward it. I would reduce it down to 50 until I can get up to my 6 months worth of savings, because having savings that you can live off of for you, your family, your kids, versus being like closer to debt freedom, that debt freedom is always a good thing. But right now I feel like we have to be more practical, and being debt free, but not having enough money to pay your mortgage or your rent or for food doesn't really make sense,
And the stress right there of not having that too, compiled going around you is just overwhelming.
So I would if you have 6 months worth of expenses saved, then absolutely continue to pay down your debt in your normal fashion. I'm not saying don't pay down debt. I'm saying not to be as aggressive right now. Normally I aggressively pay down debt, whether that's good or bad, but not in this circumstance that we're in right now. If you don't have that savings. And also too, if you're someone, you're like, I've got my 6 months, I've got a pretty solid job. I'll be preparing to invest. There are going to be investment opportunities like no other. I was not prepared in 2009 because I was losing my job, but I am prepared now. And so preparing to invest looks like a few things. One, educating yourself. Do you have a financial planner? Leaning into them. I know right now they're all stressed, but this is what they signed up for. But also 2, strengthening your cash position. So like I said, my husband and I, the house we live in now, it was a foreclosure when we purchased it. So we got it for $180. And it's, I would say, conservatively priced at about $390,000, $400,000. That's why I just called my realtor a couple of days ago to ask her. And so I was asking my husband, do you think we should pull out equity? If we can get an interest rate that is closer to 3%, because right now, last time I checked was like 3.7. So not quite good enough for me anyway. But if we can get an interest rate close to 3% or at 3 or even less, we'll see what the recession brings. Can we pull out maybe $100,000, maybe even $200,000? And because the thinking is that I can pay 3% on this money, and I know I can make more than 3% in the market, or even if I just put it into like, my, like an investment account that's reasonably invested. It doesn't have to be like invested in any sort of risky return, or risky vehicle. Even if I just put it in the market reasonably so, where I'm like super conservative, I know that my return is going to be more than 3%. Unless barring something crazy happening. So even that we're considering, because $200,000 might be $500,000 in 5 years.
And that's your smart arbitrage right there to be able to use that, right? So I do that with Infinite Banking with our life insurance program. So pull money out and really the interest to pay it back on that point to loan against it. Then I can invest it and, of course, make better on the returns of what we're doing. So, of course, you want to look at your investment option, but you're absolutely right. This is going to be a unique opportunity because there's going to be cash influx that's needed across. There's businesses that are going to need help that you can go in there and be an operator. There's going to be real estate's going to find some way. There's going to be a ton of the loan requirements that have just changed that are going to make it interesting, where cash is definitely going to be king, having to bring together reserves and having really the balance sheet for it. So you're absolutely right. Now, when someone's looking at right now and they feel like they're drowning, what are some things from the expense side that are usually red flags that maybe people aren't thinking about that they need to cut off today?
So I call it my noodle budget. So back in the day, like in college, almost everybody had to eat ramen noodles at some point, right? And so your noodle budget is your bare bones budget. Like if you were a college student and didn't have money for the bells and whistles, so, you had to learn to cut your own hair, you had to cut off your cable, whatever that looks like. I know what my noodle budget is. So let's just say your monthly budget is $10,000 a month. That's how much your expenses cost for you and your family. But you look at, if you were to cut out anything that's not a necessity, you really could get your budget down to $7,000 a month, let's just say. So then $7,000 would be your noodle budget. That's your life without the bells and whistles. So, anything that's not, like I said, I even call we make plenty, my husband and I, but I was like, are we really watching cable? That's an extra $100. Like imagine $100 over the next 6 months. That's $600. I could even just use $600 on my Robinhood app and maybe turn 600 into 650, 700 for cable that I'm not watching. And so dropping down and getting to your noodle budget or close to it, depending on where you are. It's a temporary, your noodle budget is not someplace that you want to stay, unless you have to, but it's definitely something that you should always know about. These are the non-essential items. Like I said, cable, grooming, entertainment, eating out. What can you do as far as grocery shopping? Because oftentimes I know my husband and I, we're always overbuying, but if I really wanted to cut down my groceries, I could. Are you encouraging the kids to keep the lights off? Like one of the things my dad used to do is that he would put the electric bill on the table from the current month and the month before. And if it went down, he would put money in our vacation jar. So that's the way, and as a kid, I really believe those $10 was going to take us on vacation, but it's not about that. It's really about for your kids to be partners. Exactly. So that's just a great way to get your kids to partner in saving money around the house. Things I'm trying to think what other ways have we been cutting back? I really asking yourself, is it something I need in order to move, in order for my family and I to be healthy, happy, whole? And many things that you look at, you're like, do I really need to buy clothes every week? Or do I really need that cocktail every, stopping drinking is going to save a lot of people. I don't drink, but it's going to save a lot of people a lot of money alcohol is really expensive. Thankfully, people can't eat out as much, but are you really so your subscriptions, for example, right now, can you pause your magazine subscriptions or cancel them altogether? We're not allowed to go to the gym right now anyway. Can you cancel that one or pause it? Also, if you're really struggling, almost everyone has something. I had my youngest sister. I told her, she was she just started a new job and she doesn't get her paycheck for a little while. And I told her, call every single one of your service providers and say, hey, my income has been negatively affected by the current times. And every single one of them had something. Sometimes they have there's a break for 2 months. Sometimes it's no interest. Even now with you have federal student loans, they're giving you 60 days not to pay your student loans and 60 days of interest free. And they're not putting the interest back on the back end, which is awesome. And even if you have private student loans with Sallie Mae or Freddie Mac, they're doing the same. And if you have a mortgage with like Sally Mae or Freddie Mac, they have a program for that. So there are programs that are set in place. If you're like, I can't even forget the noodle budget. I can't even afford my regular life expenses. Call and ask for help. Don't just
Yeah.
stop paying. Call and
And
ask
you
for help.
know, and when you look at that, that's being financially prepared. Because people may be saying, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look in need." But no, you're being financially prepared. Right now, you're going to have a couple of weeks of you don't know. You're going to get a $1,200 check, maybe, or if you cross the income threshold, not get that check. But that check, how far is it going to take you if you don't know when you're going back to work, right? So,
Yes.
is that going to help you for just cover groceries and rent, and then you're just back in that same position of no income for the next 4 or 5 weeks? And even like the alcohol thing. I mean, most restaurants make their money on alcohol, so that's how much money you're spending. You're spending on what they make the most money on. So if you cut that back, and the thing about the subscriptions, what I always think about these little apps that you sign up for, that you're like, yeah, I'll just do this, and within 2 weeks it starts charging $7.99, and you just don't pay attention. You probably have 3, 5, 7 of them. You're paying $30, $50 a month, and if you're not using them, turn them off, and then that's money you can put in the, you could invest. And so definitely a lesson learned there is that there's always ways, right? Like the cable is the same thing. When we were looking at, like, my wife and I don't even watch TV. It's always the kids. We were like, so why do we even have this? We got Apple TV and the Disney Channel, and they're as happy as, they're happy. They're loving life. It's like $10. It's like, it's like, that's all they want. We don't even put the TV on. So there's always spots you can go in there. And, with these things that seem, this is so obvious, we pass them over a lot, but it's never really been ingrained in this. And you worked in this bill, really just creating a law to help with financial education. What is some things that you feel or see could really benefit just young kids in the future? Like your dad had this great thing, he puts the electric bill on there. Every kid gets that, like, and it's got this reward base to it at the end too. Like, hey, potentially we're going to go on vacation, whether or not it has to do with it, at least gives us that thought track. How else can we work with our kids if it's not school that's going to do it? And hopefully it will eventually. But if they're parents at home, what are some lessons you can do to help get your kids ahead of it, so they have a better footing when they are getting out of school, to have a better grasp on what they do, or even why they're in school?
No, absolutely. So you're right. I worked on this law called the Budgetnista Law, A1414, and it was passed January 2019 to make financial education mandatory for middle school students, because New Jersey, the state where we live, already had a law in place for high school, which is great. We're one of the first states. And we're actually working on the second part of A1414 to get elementary schools to teach financial education, because I taught preschool for 10 years. And one thing I know is that at around age 3, sometimes even young as 2, but typically at the age 3 and 4, kids start saying, Mom, Dad, Auntie, Uncle, Grandma, Grandpa, can you buy me? Not just can I have. And so, because people will say, oh, they're too young. I'm like, no, John just said, can you buy me? That means he's made the connection that you have spent money to get this thing. And so it is your opportunity now to make sure it's the right connection. So for kids who are really little, one of the best ways is through story. So I actually wrote my very first children's book, and it's a financial literacy children's book called Happy Birthday, Molly Moore. It's M-A-L-I, Moore, M-O-R-E. And so because I understood that parents with little ones didn't know, how do I teach financial education in the way that's age appropriate? Children ages 3 to 7, that the book is for, they relate specifically to story, because it's nice for them to see themselves outside themselves. So the mouse in the story, well, Molly's a little girl, but Molly in the story is learning the difference between stuff and what means more stuff, your birthday presents or your family and friends. And so they can project that energy onto her, and you can teach lessons like, well, Molly didn't have as many friends. Why is that? Even at the back of the book, I wrote I included like lessons and questions you can use to extend the lesson. So stories for really little ones. And so if you have elementary school age children, they really are kinesthetic learners. So that's learners who move while they're learning. If you have a child like within the age of who's in elementary school, they are busy. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I used to do when I was teaching is we would create something called a savings box. And because you want to start introducing the correct words for your child. And so the savings box, and you can call it like their savings account at home. It's just a shoebox or coffee can. And it's really nice because you can get magazines, and they can use age appropriate scissors to cut out pictures of things they want to save for. and they stick it on the side of the box. And so every time they get money from grandma, birthday, Christmas, whatever, you're reminding them that some money has to always go into your savings box, your savings account. So you're teaching them that, like, I receive money, I get to keep some, but I also have to save some. And so that's for the really, really little ones. Another fun thing to do too, because I believe that charity and giving and service is also a financial education lesson. And that, so we used to do a penny drive with the kids. And so, because pennies are something super easy, because a lot of the parents where I worked were struggling financially and they weren't going to give their kids money to bring to school, but pennies are literally things you might find outside. So they would bring pennies into school. I got one of those big water bottles, you know, the kind that
office cooler.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we would throw the pennies in there. Every time they brought pennies, they were so excited to throw the pennies in there because, one, it's kinesthetic learning. They get to hear the penny clink. And then once a week, we would dump it out and count the pennies. So that's a counting exercise. And then we would talk about how much money was in there and what did things cost and how we can use this money to serve other people. So I might say, we can help somebody who's hungry. Well, how much does it cost for a hamburger? Oh, it's $1, Miss Tiffany. I saw it at McDonald's. Okay. So now they know once we get to $1, we have enough to give somebody who's hungry a hamburger, you know? So it was linking that. So of course I would take the pennies, cash them in, and I would just, you know, I would give it to like a homeless shelter. Not that we were giving somebody an actual hamburger, but I wanted them to understand the connection because they were so young. So that's for like elementary school students. And then when you get kids who are a little bit older, so teens, so I have a bonus daughter, my stepdaughter, she's 13. And so she has a 3-part, she still has a piggy bank, right? So a 3-part piggy bank, and it's savings, giving, spending. And so whenever she gets an allowance, so now when we use this app called Chore Monster, and it's totally free. And with Chore Monster, she can log in as a kid on the kids section, and then I can log in as an adult. And the way it works is that I give her chores, and you can either assign a dollar amount to the chore or you can assign points.
That's great.
And so she works. And so she doesn't work. She doesn't get any money. And so whenever we go out, so even ever since she was little, I would always use the correct terminology. This is important. So she was like 5 and saying, hey, Tiffy, like, can you buy me this? And I would say, well, what's your budget? You know? And so it would be funny to see this 5-year-old as we were negotiating back and forth. Well, I have a budget of, because she knew to go to her savings box and pull out her money. And she knew that what she has set aside, that's her budget. And so using those words, and also too, when you're going shopping with kids, giving them a set amount of money or letting them pull money from their little savings box, it's a great way for them to have autonomy. Because every time, like we would go shopping, when I first met my husband, he would just buy her doll just because she's the only child, and it was like, oh, get whatever doll you want. And I'm like, is it her birthday? Like, are we just giving gifts just because? And of course she loved me, right? So, and I was like, I don't think that's a good lesson to teach her. So instead, she loved, after a while, saving, and she loves Staples. I used to go to Staples all the time when I started my business, and I would bring her. And she loved knowing I have a $5 budget, because now she gets to decide whatever she wants, as long as it's kid appropriate. She can get whatever within this $5. So to see her do the math, and to add it up, and then to give the money to the cashier, and to learn about tax. I remember a time that she went over, she calculated exactly $5, and then she learned that there's sales tax in New Jersey. It was like, what does that mean? It was such a great lesson. Yeah. So doing that with your children as well, you know, paying them for certain things around the house, allowing them to use that money outside in the real world, and allowing them to calculate what their budget is or what they can spend based upon the money they have available to them.
Yeah, and it's so important to do it early, because money's just going to move quicker. And ultimately, you know, we go back to our parents, they didn't have credit cards, some of them. So you literally, if you didn't have the money, you didn't buy it. And now you spend so much on credit cards before you even have the money, with the precept that I'm getting. People are just going to have more ways to get in trouble. The ways things are filtered, the way things are offered to you, the way things are handled, just the psychology around it just like gives people more ability to buy it with the hope that you can pay it off later. So, you know, buy a mattress, you don't have to pay for it for a year. You know, buy a TV, you can pay for it in 3 years. All these things that just get people stuck in this whole mode. And the cash is so important, because either you have it or you don't. And and if kids don't see it and they just see it hitting a button, you know, buying Amazon, hitting that button, that's what they think is going to be life. And that's what's going to be ingrained to them. And it's going to lead them down this road of just really poor financial choices, which as we know, a lot of America has. So
Yeah.
looking at this, the next 5 years with the Budgetnista, as your personal financial business continues really to help other people, what is your big overarching goal for the next, 1 year, 5 years, whatever you're looking at now?
My big overarching goal is that we get used to talking about money the way people talk about TV shows.
Yeah.
So like all my friends know, like, I mean, I'm really candid. I'll share like how much I made, how much I lost, what I'm doing. So because what I'm doing is trying to train them into money is not the secret, scary thing you do in the dark. Because when you do that, when you make mistakes or you're unsure, then you put yourself in jeopardy of staying in whatever mistake that you've made. And so I want money to become a normal conversation, because when that happens, then all of a sudden, like my friend Mark was telling me about like, like even though the market is down right now, I'm thinking about investing. I used to actually work for the airlines, and this is the airline that I like. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we started a group chat so we could just talk about like the stocks that we're interested in and why. And so as a result, like even though it was a down market, all of us made a little bit of money, because we had this open conversation about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And so that is my big goal, is that I want to make talking about money normal. And I want people to help each other with a little bit of knowledge that you have. You don't have to know all the things. Is that if Mark knows about stocks, but I'm really good at budgeting, and then this one knows about 401ks, and then someone else is really good at credit. And so I have a lot of great financial friends around me where I had those normal conversations. And it's what's taken me from, because when I was 10 years ago, when I was 30, my net worth was negative 300,000. Because I owed the student loans, I owed credit cards, and I owed my my mortgage. And now I have a 7-figure net worth with no debt. Yeah. So like a true net worth, right? Well, net worth is what you own minus what you owe anyway. But yeah, so 10 years later, and it's really the financial basics. I know people think that they have to be like some shark in the market. I'm not. Honestly, I will admit that I don't feel fully comfortable investing in the market. I feel like I'm still a baby learning when it comes to that. But I've leaned into what I do know. I feel comfortable with real estate, at least on a smaller scale, and I feel really comfortable with business. And so, but I want to diversify the vehicles that I use in order to invest. Like, okay, a little bit more real estate. I already have 5 businesses. And Tiffany, I really want you to spend some time learning more about the market so you can invest there. And so, but it starts with the foundation of saving and budgeting, basic paying down your debt, making sure you have strong credit. You can't build a strong financial house with a shaky foundation.
Yeah, and that's super important. And you said one thing that was so crucial right there was that you surround yourself with other like-minded people who are educated or financially savvy in that regard, or whatever you want to do on that part. So, if you're around negative people, get around positive people. If you're around people that aren't talking about money, get around people that are talking about money. If you want to open a business, get around people that are opening businesses. You surround yourself with the people that you do what you want to do. And so much times we find ourselves around others who don't have the same maybe interest in stuff, and things change. Okay, well, you have to find those people that can help lead you to your path and where you can bring value as well. So,
and if you can't find them, honestly, like Facebook groups is like my jam. Like I tell people all the time that like I'm part of Entrepreneurs for Women. I'm part of Financial Educators. I'm part of like former preschool teacher. Like I love joining Facebook groups because that are aligned with my interests. There are Facebook groups for everything, but I joined Facebook when I wanted to learn how to invest in real estate. I joined a real estate group, and like just for a year, I listened, I watched, I learned. Then I reached out to people who seemed really eager to share, because there's always people who are willing to share. I started like a lot of Facebook groups will meet up sometimes in person. So I started meeting up to learn even more. And then when I was ready to make a move, I had resources. So your immediate circle might not know or might not be interested. Maybe you're still hanging out with your college friends or your high school friends, and they honestly don't care. It doesn't mean they can't be your friends still, but if you can't do better unless you're around better. You are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So look around in your circle. That's who you're becoming or who you already are.
Yeah, there's literally no excuses, because you can search and get anywhere. When we analyze markets, people say, well, how do you get so fluent with the market? Why? I literally go on a site, BiggerPockets or another site, and just connect with people in the market and just ask questions questions and they give me all the feedback. And,
Yep.
you know, within a week, I literally know it like the back of my hand, just because it's available without even having to go there. So you can do anything you want and get around those people. And it's just great points. So Tiffany, how can listeners learn more about you, all these great things you're doing? Where's the best way to connect?
So I am the Budgetnista on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and thebudgetnista.com.
That's awesome. Tiffany, thank you so much. It's been awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.